Hey, good evening and welcome to Fish on Northwest of Wayne, England, the Barnum. And lo and behold, we got an in-studio guest.
Look at this guy.
We can't get rid of him. He's like, I'm sitting in this chair right from the get-go.
Yep, we normally don't have guests opening segment, but Austin's like, yep.
Yeah, man, I drove over 2 hours. I'm sitting in. Okay, yeah. No, actually, we invited him. Austin BOOM POW Moser joining us in studio this evening. Glad you could make the drive, my friend.
Yeah, happy to be here. I've been wanting to come and do this show with you guys ever since we got going. You got going.
Yeah.
And finally we were able to make it happen. And
we were talking about this back in 2015.
Right.
I said, hey, eventually I'm going to have a show, and you're gonna have to make a trek to the west side. And you said, I'm there.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And, of course, Buoy 10 aligns kind of in a geographical location, has you closer now than typical, right? So.
Right.
Here you are, going to involve you in an extensive amount of the show, so just sit tight while we get through this stuff, and we'll get right back to you.
I'm ready to watch the show.
Yeah, I'm ready to watch the show. We got David over in IT Corner getting his stuff done as he does each and every week. Chef and Sherry will join us later in the kitchen for another fantastic recipe of the week. Barnum, I think they're pulling some of that pheasant out of the freezer that Chef and I went over with Cody earlier in the year and knocked those down, so that was good. So stay tuned for that. That's a pretty interesting recipe and very easy to do from what I've been told. I guess we'll see. Fish on Northwest is presented by Better Homes and Gardens Pacific Commons Real Estate located in Puyallup, Washington, and we thank them each and every week that they continue to hang on with us for that. So lots of stuff going on around the Pacific Northwest and beyond, Barnum. This last week was, once again, kind of busy. Not a lot of fishing for myself or you.
No.
Unfortunately, you got to pay the bills. And Sherry and I, thanks to our friend Chase Gunnell, who was in studio several weeks ago with Conservation Northwest, he actually offered up our names and as a media source, because that's what we are, that's what we do here, to the TRCP group, the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. They held their Western Media Summit this last weekend in Seattle this year. They move it around. Yeah. You're talking the Western Media Group. That's comprised of 11 Western states, and this year, once again, they held it in Seattle. 17th annual, I believe it was. Okay. So it was nice to be invited as media to come and attend and listen to keynote speakers and panels of individuals selected by the TRCP group to talk about different things, all in the realm of conservation, right? And I don't know if you have followed the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership all that much online or on Facebook, Instagram. They're very active social media, but if you haven't, you need to. It's a group that's very well ingrained into all things conservation, whether it walks the landscape or is in the waters or the estuary waters or, climate change. I mean, just all the things, carbon footprint, just all these things going on that aren't just hype and just, that's just another way of people making money. I mean, these folks work their tail off, and Sherry and I both, extremely impressed with the persons they pulled in, the conversations that we found ourselves involved with, and how much activity is going on out there, especially in our state alone. I mean, you're talking across the nation, and of course this group, again, the 11 main western states, but in Washington state alone, it's mind-boggling how much effort goes in and work goes into, we talk about hatchery reform, but when you back up behind there and look at all the layers of what's going on to collectively come together and try to structure some form of hatchery reform and try to bring our wild fish back and do that in conjunction with putting additional hatchery fish out there for the orcas to eat and mitigate the predation issues and all those things going on. I mean, it's never ending. Right. Population 7.5 million in our state. More people fishing and hunting, believe it or not, than ever, but less landscape to do it on. The waters are crowded. We have less rivers with opportunity for hatchery harvest. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You and I spend an ungodly amount of time week in and week out talking about this stuff, but just a quick overview, kind of a recap of some of the stuff we were exposed to, and it was very good information. And this is just a broad brush stroke of a handful of things and some of the folks involved, because we will pull some of these individuals in studio as we progress through the year and beyond, and keep chipping away at this stuff. I mean, to get Chase in here several weeks ago and talk about the number of issues that we did with Conservation Northwest, for a lot of people was eye-opening. To have David Trout, the head of the Nisqually tribe, at our live show at SportCon, talk about tribes working towards attempting methods and integrating methods of selective harvest is eye-opening. And you want to hear stuff like that as we move forward, right? So they had multiple topics of things they covered over the course of a couple days. They started off with salmon steelhead trends, threats, and opportunities, and that was basically a panel. Some of the folks I was familiar with, John McMillan, who's been with Trout Unlimited forever, just amazing individual on the basis of wild steelhead recovery. He has probably logged more hours in every river, stream, estuary, throughout Washington, Oregon, California, and videoed and taken pictures and has documented stuff. He's a scientist at heart, and just the information he brings. And I previously spent time with him in studio up at KJR years back, and just, struck up a friendship there. John brings a ton of information to the fight. Leonard Forsman, Suquamish tribe, also affiliated with Northwest Treaty Tribes, had a lot of great information to expand on. Actually, the handful of folks that were on that particular group, it was all about habitat, human intervention, development and sprawl, how we make it all work and yet find ourselves the ability to continue to make, allow these fish to survive. And it was, it's the typical, it's the hatchery, it's the harvest, it's the over harvest, it's the hydro, it's the, what else did they talk about? Oh, unregulated over harvest, climate change. They marched down this list of things that pretty much it's on everybody's head. Few groups are talking about it. A handful of folks are doing something about it, and the conversation was interesting. Then it jumped into economic impact of salmon fisheries, which was very interesting. We all know that there's a monetary value put on our fisheries. Yeah. From a recreational standpoint, also you make your living, based on the opportunity to go fishing. Commercials make their living, God forbid, on the opportunity to go fishing and provide for those that don't fish. We get that. It's a balancing act. The economic impacts are one that is on the radar of many. Liz Hamilton, NSIA, Northwest Sports Fishing Industry Association, she's the executive director. She had a lot of great insight. Also got to meet a very interesting gentleman by the name of Dick Poole, founder and creator, Austin knows, of ProTroll, right? Still kicking it, still attending these events. Gem of a human being, just a great guy. Sherry and I struck up a conversation with him for a lengthy time over multiple days, and just a really interesting individual. He has seen the rise and fall of salmon runs down there in California like you can't believe, and he really is concerned, obviously, with the direction fisheries are going and what he has seen over the last 50 years. Great guy to talk to. Nice to see he still has his hand in it at his age and willing to come to these events and share his knowledge and the history of some of those fisheries. Right. We also got to go midday of day one. We went and toured the Ballard Locks, which I hadn't been there since I was a kid, right? And if you've never gone and taken that tour, the historical value of that about the construction of the locks is one thing, but understanding the history of the salmon, the sockeye and the Chinook and coho and everything, Lake Washington, how it all is tied together now, very interesting history. Some things I didn't know. I actually wrote down some notes because it's too much for my dumb brain to remember, but they initiated those locks projects back in 1909, okay? And then 1917, they made some major changes that came about that affected salmon runs as we know them today. The Cedar River was rerouted into Lake Washington to provide sufficient water flow for opening the locks. Wow. That I did know, but it happened so long ago, you kind of just, the Cedar River for our lifetime has always drained into Lake Washington. No big deal, right? Well, additionally, the White River was rerouted into the Puyallup. It used to fall on the other side. It used to go into King County into the Green, I believe, and then it all drained into the Duwamish, but they rerouted the White River to drain into the Puyallup. They're like, oh, we don't want it, you guys take it. They literally rechanneled it, okay? Does that affect historic salmon runs in any way, shape, or form, right?
You think they show up where the river normally goes?
Yeah, the Cedar and the White originally both drained into the Duwamish, causing frequent flooding. So they rerouted the rivers, opened a huge lowland area for development, and then significantly disrupted the Duwamish salmon runs, okay? To rectify this problem, they then basically have the salmon transitioning into the lake through the locks. So then they had to go back in, retrofit a ladder years later, and It's they even have an issue with outbounding fish. You know, they got the ramps over the dam that allow the fish to wash down, and the survivability is difficult because, as the gentleman who was given the tour, for those not familiar, when fish transition from fresh to salt, they spend time in the estuary water and smolt, right? And they go through a metamorphosis so their body can absorb and work with the salt before they head out to Puget Sound, kind of cruise around for a while, and then head out to ocean. Right. Those smolt coming out of Lake Washington dump down the chute, and when they hit past that wall where there's the underwater blockade that doesn't allow the salt water to transition up into the lake, they are in salt water right now. Wow. So they go from fresh to salt. There's no acclimation period. There's no ability to absorb that. There's no ability for the body to go through that change. And I asked him, I said, well, do we have any type of statistical data on mortality rate? And he goes, well, it's a lot less than when we used to just run them through the pipe. You know, the underground huge pipes that flow the water to work the locks up and down. The fish used to flush out through them, and they all got barnacles on the inside of them. So they get all torn up. It'd be like going through a shredder, right? So, yeah. So poor survivability still exists in the outbounding. There was not a single fish in the viewing windows at the locks when we went down below and took a look inside. Mid-August, those locks should be stuffed full of Chinook salmon right now. Right. Yeah. And the sockeye should be going through there in droves, and previous month, July, nothing. I mean, just very, very poor runs. It's really unfortunate to see, but again, then you kind of back up and go, these runs were established through this area because of man-made diversion, changing river migration, and we force these fish to come through here, and now we're having a real difficult time establishing or keeping that run established. Maybe Mother Nature's trying to tell us something. I don't know. I'm not saying give up, but they're only there because we chose for them to be there. They originally weren't there. So anyway, that was an interesting tour. If you ever get time, take some time, take the family up there, get a little history lesson on the development of Seattle and Lake Washington and how all that came to be. Pretty fascinating stuff. Met a great individual, spent some time with, hoping to get him here. Maybe even this October we get him out chasing salmon. He's never caught a salmon. He's intrigued by the idea to go catch Chinook salmon on bobber and eggs. Right. I told him we can make that happen. Eric Siegfried, founder of Onyx. Young guy, brainiac, grew up on a cattle ranch, basically went to rocket ship school, and just a very, very smart-minded engineer, brainiac kind of a kid who took up passion of hunting at 14, 15, and then about 10 years later, he's finishing up school and he's out hunting, and he's perplexed by the fact that by following all the current existing data available, he could not tell if that fence post 10 feet off the road was on the line he had permission to be on or not. Right. And that scrambled his brain to the point where he started working and talking to people. Next thing you know, Onyx is bloomed, and just a fantastic invention of, I mean, everybody uses it. I was explaining to him that I got more buddies that fish that use Onyx just to navigate rivers and understand parcels of private land versus public access, and it's a valuable tool, not just in the hunting realm but also for fishing. If you're not using it on your phone,
and I've turned multiple real estate agents onto it.
Absolutely.
It's like, where's the property lines? I don't know.
Yeah.
Get on X map.
Yeah.
Let's walk the property lines together.
Yes. It's amazing how accurate it is. And the key thing, Eric and Lisa Nichols, who also is part of Onyx, they did a presentation on the upgrades now where they've outlined. Last year they unveiled, and they were with Ranella, and they talked about federal landlocked areas, right? And you can pull up land all over in every state, and you can see all the federal land you have access to. Their criteria is if it touches a road, a public road, you have public access to it. Right. If there's no way to get to it via public road, if there's a 10-foot barrier or a private piece of land or no right-of-way, you don't have access to it. Well, now they've done it for state land as well, which is huge. And so they showed maps of the 11 western states, and it is mind-boggling how much federal and state land we as recreational enthusiasts, whether you horseback ride, mountain bike, ATV, hunt, fish, whatever, state and federal public lands that you do not have access to because of the way land has been broken up and sold to private parties and blocked out. It's the checkerboard effect. And corner hopping is not an option. Although I heard a little rumor that in some states they're just going to kind of start looking the other way on corner hopping.
They should.
It's not worth it to pursue that and call it a trespass,
right?
Especially if the farmer that owns 400 acres really doesn't care that you jumped his corner to get from public land to public land.
Right.
It's an absolute waste of resources and time.
I mean, the honesty of it is that the farmers that do care don't care because they feel like you trespass. They only care because they don't want you to access that piece of land that they use for themselves.
Because they probably hunt it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is
so
reality.
There may be some changes coming down the pipe in regards to that, but really good information. They've already had put it out there previously in 11 western states that they have noted that 9.52 million acres federal land unaccessible to public just because of landlocked issues.
Right.
That's a whole lot of land. 3 million acres alone in Wyoming.
Sounds like we need a helicopter.
That's the thing, right? You can fly in and drop in, and then you have access. So the checkerboard issue is real, and the corner hopping issue is. We'll see where that goes in the next couple of years, but something to keep track of, and hoping to get Eric here at some point, bring him in on the show, and discuss Onyx and landlock and navigating the terrain and all that, and get him out fishing and hopefully get him a picture with a nice fish. So some keynote speakers that were there that was very interesting. You familiar with Hillary Franz? Land Commissioner? Washington State Land Commissioner since 2016, right? I knew her name, didn't really ever follow anything she has going. I'm telling you, this woman is on fire, literally. I mean, she's the head of DNR, and she talked a lot about forest mitigation and some of the battles as of the last few years in these wildland fires and how devastating they are, not just to the forests themselves, but to the landscape and to the animal herds, right? So everything has value. Forestry is definitely a high value in our state, and how they manage those forests and try to prevent additional fires. I mean, they had that one fire in 2015. It was just over 300,000 acres. Devastating loss of habitat and terrain. And then, the mudslides ensue after you get to the wet season, and all that landscape is disrupted. So she's actually worked extremely hard the last couple of years. In order to restore wildfire resilience in our forests, Commissioner Franz developed a 20-year forest plan, health strategic plan. This plan will help more than 1 million acres of forest be healthier and resilient to wildfires, or resistant to wildfires. And they're doing that through, I think it was Representative Keaton also is working on corridors. They're actually going in, cutting major corridors that allow for gaps within the timber runs to ensure you just don't have ongoing continuous burn, but you have fire breaks. And a lot of other forests are managed that way, and it's something you'll probably hear more about moving forward, but they're trying to take large sections of forest land now and manage them more aggressively than ever. Areas that have, severe infestation with beetles and things that are decimating them, to get in there and cut down those woods and get them out of there. And then, of course, unfortunately, they got to spray and do things to try and offset that. But there's a balance. You got to find balance. And it just seems like they're getting a lot more aggressive in the realm of forestry management than we've seen previously, which all, ties together with everything else we got going on. The conservation wildlife migration corridors, we talked a bit about that with Chase when he was in here. That's becoming a huge thing. There's actually an implementation of a secretarial order of migration that's been recognized that feds and states are looking at now. Lots of research and data being collected. Washington State is very proactive when funds are available to get out and capture and collar numerous animals in certain herds, and they really want to track their true today's migration corridors versus relying on information from, say, 2000 or 1995 or whatever, because other roads, developments, and sprawl has changed in some regards where those animals traverse, and so they want to know today where these herds are migrating from summer to winter and winter to summer, and where they're basically needing to spend time and how they need to get there. And the need for that to understand is so that they don't just keep expanding out as humans and just conquering land and then just keep pushing these animals off into areas that they don't survive well. They need to recognize where they're existing and surviving now, and they need to take into consideration where we're going to push them to if we don't take that into account. So a lot of efforts in that regard, but as we recognize where they want to travel, we have to then make accommodations for them to get over and under highways, as Chase had alluded to. Great individual that I got to catch up with. I hadn't talked to him for a couple of years. Jay Keeney, formerly a WDFW or Fish and Game Commissioner, on the commission for 7 years. He's also been with Conservation Northwest for the past 10 years. Jay's over on the east side, Omak, Okanagan, all that area there. He is working diligently on that, believe it or not, Barnum, that Highway 12 or 97,
right.
That 12-mile stretch that Chase talked about, where we are literally killing a mule deer a day, right, over there on 97, that 12-mile stretch. Now, numbers would indicate that we need about $1 million, $1.5 million per mile to make it to where safe passage for animals. But if records would prove, the benefit, just look at the process of the I-90 corridor as of late. I mean, that was like a 23 or 25 year project to finally get it to where it is. Austin, if you come over on I-90, you can see the difference now getting to the west side. The overbridges that everybody's bitching about that cost $6 million, well, the underpassages that is working very well. The underpassages are working very well. Lots of pictures and video of elk, deer, bears have started using it, which are typically the last of a species to get comfortable with going through those areas. Coyotes and all the little critters that need to transition across the landscape as well. But it's reconnecting the landscape, which is something that biologists and scientists have now begun to understand is huge. And it's important that our animals have that freedom to roam. And to tackle issues, Austin, you were mentioning somewhere out of Wenatchee, or did you say, where else did you mention as far as highway issues?
Well, there's lots of places that I see when I travel, but like Blewett Pass, there's a
Blewett
spot.
Pass is another one, yeah.
There's like a 2 mile stretch, or maybe even less than that, like a mile stretch, where you'll see 10 or 12 deer dead on the highway, and then when the snow melts, then they really start popping out, and you'll see 20 or 30 of them in that area. So
they have decided that's where they want to cross the highway, right? Because of whatever is forced them now. Yeah, so they have to come up with a means of running these fence lines that are non-detrimental to other critters that walk the landscape. We can't be catching a bunch of rabbits in a steel mesh gill net, so to speak, or coyotes or whatever, right? So they got to take all that into consideration, build these choke points or these funnel points, and then provide them an access to get across, under, or over the highways. And that's typically what's going on. And I asked Jay afterwards, I said, I get it. The secretarial order is like giving the feds to say, hey, we need to study this stuff, and then we do the research, then we have all this data. It's like, now where do we generate the money to build these structures? Right. And he's like, well, we're seeking funding, and there's different means to seek funding. And I go, what about, and you guys are probably gonna hate me for this, but what about a $2 per vehicle, RV, boat, trailer, $2 license tab fee for migration and corridor crossings for wild game in the state of Washington? You have any idea how many millions of dollars that would generate, Barnum?
Yeah,
I counted it up. I got 7 different things that require license tabs here. I'm paying $14 a year to ensure that we can build the $12 to $15 million required for Highway 97 and stop killing 350 deer a year. That, in that herd alone, migrating down from Canada and across up there in that northeast corner, that is, 5 years, you're looking at, 1,600 deer decimated out of that herd. That is not due, well, some of it's due to hunters because they're traveling. But it's, when you're killing more animals via vehicles than hunters, there's a concern there. And it's like, well, how do we pool the money to make this happen? I don't know if guys are signing on here because I forgot to sign on, but if guys have things to say about that, I want you to weigh in. Would you pay a couple bucks per vehicle on the license tabs? And you mentioned it before the show, hey, I thought we were supposed to pay $30 license tabs, Tim Hyman, right? Well, that held for about a month or a year, but the tabs vary. They're not a huge amount unless you live in Pierce County and pay all that transit crap. But for me, another $1 or $2 on a license tab, for example, is what I would think would be beneficial to generate a super fund of money to start building these under and over passages. Somebody else come up with a better idea. I don't want it applied to just hunters and fishers. Because everybody travels the landscape via highways and roads, and so everybody is responsible or on the hook.
Let's get the insurance companies to pay for it.
They don't care. They look at. Matter of fact, David, put that put that slide up if you would. Good segue, Barnum. One other thing, they were addressing highway crossings within migration corridors and the cost per state. They actually covered 15 states. If you look on the screen, this study from 2018 indicated that the annual average cost for all 15 states was $1.5 billion. Okay, 32 people killed and 34,000 animals killed. That's the ones they accounted for. There is also the 3 to 5 factor of animals they don't find.
Right.
So they get hit, they bounce and jump the road, or they run 100 or 200 yards before they fall over and die. There could be upwards of 3 to 5 times as many animals getting killed, which on that side of the coin, there's an economic value of those animals being killed and not being out there on the landscape for folks to have access to for hunting and whatnot, right?
So I would definitely say, like in Washington State, 1,568 animals, that is a low number.
Yeah.
Way low.
Yeah,
I mean, and I want to say most car to animal incidents aren't reported.
And that's the key, right?
Yeah,
so they're putting this number in at 46 billion, just the known 3% that is accounted for.
Right.
So the number is much higher than that.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't the insurance companies, I think you mentioned a couple weeks ago, you said, man, if I'm over there on Highway 97, I know what I'm doing. I'm opening up a body shop, and right next to it, I'm opening up a pepperoni or beef jerky stand, right? That's how we're going to deal with that. But in all reality, the insurance companies look at it and go, well, you know, there's no guarantee it's going to be my clients hitting deer. So, you know, if it becomes an issue, we'll just raise rates. I mean, they're not going to pay for something that's proposed or assumed. You know, you have to come down with hard numbers to say this is happening. Well, overall, it's happening, and I would just think that there's got to be a way to spend $12 million to chip away at that $46+ million a year being wasted on, you know, and plus people are dying. Yeah. So you would think there'd be motivation to take care of some of this stuff. But there's so much activity going on in the realm of conservation and groups involved and things that we're learning and want to be part of, and you know, hopefully you guys understand why we're covering this stuff, because it all affects what it is we like to do. It all gives us the opportunity to be out in the woods hunting, we're on the water fishing, and it all is connected, so we got to cover some of that stuff. But before we run on too long here, Barnum, because that took far too long, a couple things. Duck numbers came out a few days ago. 2019's looking somewhat favorable, close to 2018. Give me some of those numbers that you came up with.
Yeah, I mean, I think across the board, the numbers are probably staying pretty consistent. The mallards in 2019, looking at 9.4 million mallards. In 2018, it was 9.2. So that's a change of just a little over 2%. Long-term average, that's a change of almost 19%. So, I mean, the mallard numbers are definitely increasing, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
As we go down, the American widgeon, 2.8 million, 2018, 2.8, so it pretty much stayed the same, but on the long-term average, they're up 8%. The green-winged teal, it's actually up 4% from a little over 3 million to almost 3.2 million. The northern pintail is actually a species that's down a bit, 2.2 million from 2.3, and that species over the long term on a 10-year average is actually down 42%. So
no kidding.
That's a bit concerning for the northern pintail. Across the rest of it, I mean, there's nothing. The redhead is down 27% this year from last year, but even on the long-term average. So, I mean, overall, you look at it, things are staying fairly even
pretty
keel.
Close, right?
Yeah, but it should be another great duck season. I mean, there's, 38.9 million birds coming through.
So you take that and you couple that with your long-term weather forecast, and you look if we're going to get cold weather early, or you know, any rain early, or if it's going to be like wet and warm, and just have them all spread out. I mean, you just got to kind of wait until you're there to see how it's unfolding, and you get those windows of opportunity, and we get to go shoot some ducks.
Yeah.
So we'll be calling our boys over there Nowhere to Hunt.
Yeah, you know, you got this big flush of ducks that's going to come, and it really, I mean, it's just it's a minute weather thing. I mean, you time it right or you don't.
Yep,
I mean, that's
exactly.
how duck hunting is.
Hey, by the way, Marine Area 11, looking at things coming and openings and closings. Marine Area 11 will close on Sunday due to hitting our quota. Close to Chinook fishing, I should say, due to hitting our quota. Okay. Still be open for coho and pinks, and according to David, Area 11 is polluted with pinks right now. So get your kids, get your wives, get your girlfriends, get your husbands, get your whatever, and get out there, get your pinks on, because there's plenty of them out there. Far more than they anticipated. Initially, I believe the run was forecasted at about 630,000. In some regards, I've read reports they bumped that to 1.5 or 2 million. But we'll see if that materializes. You know, I wish I was that wrong.
Yeah, that's like 3 times.
I know, yeah. We missed it by a little bit.
Yeah, we missed it by 300%.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
It's like weatherman.
Yeah, still have a job though when you show up on Monday, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter. So keep that in mind. 11 closing. Oh, the other side of that is that 2-day closure that we've experienced through the opportunity to fish Thursday, Friday, fishing from a boat. Now, 7 days a week you can fish from a boat. There's no closed days to be on the water in Area 11. So you have that going for you, and all those pinks coming at you. So get on it. Barnum. A little story I posted here the other day on our Facebook page. Originally, there was some information put out by Allison Morrow of King 5 News in regards to the elimination of the 4, well, possibly 5, but 4 remaining wolves, 2 adults, 2 youths that were terminated by WDFW on the morning, I believe, of the 16th, I think is what it documented.
Right.
The big rub on that is that there was an injunction coming down from a judge to say hold, cease and desist, lethal removal of wolves until we get through whatever it was. People were throwing their arms up in the air to say enough's enough. And WDFW exercised their right within that morning 4-hour window to exterminate those 4 wolves to get rid of that pack. Now, I had that number here somewhere and I've lost it. Total number of wolves out of that general region that have been killed in the last couple of years in controlling these wolves. So there's some information about this. First of all, let's kind of walk through what it is WDFW qualifies as. This is a depredation, and now we have to remove this wolf because of X, Y, Z.
So we have a wolf management plan, as we know, and the wolf management plan, I mean, they took into account everything when they wrote this plan, whether it be depredation, human conflict, all that. And there is certain criteria that has to be met before lethal removal of a wolf can happen. And that's what a lot of people forget. They think that, oh, just because something happened, they're going to go in and start killing wolves. No, there is a criteria set, bullet points that have to be reached, and when those bullet points are reached, then lethal removal can become a factor. Let's go through these really quick since we're running short on time here. But number 1, department has documented at least 3 depredation events within a 30-day rolling window of time, or at least 4 depredation events within a 10-month rolling window of time. So 3 in 30 days, 4 in 10 months. At least 2 proactive deterrence measures and responsive deterrent measures have been implemented and failed to meet the goal of influence or changing pack behavior. So that would be events like range riders or hot fences, stuff like that. Something to try to basically keep the wolves from having conflict with livestock or humans or whatever the case may be. Number 3, expect depredations to continue. Deterrence measures have not changed pack behavior, and overlap between wolves and livestock is expected to continue in the near future.
So they just look at it and go, everything we've done isn't going to work.
Right. We've tried strobe lights, we've tried sirens, we've tried hot wires, we've tried range riders. No matter what, the wolves don't seem to care. They seem to continue to be interacting with the livestock, and we don't expect that to change.
Sure.
The department has documented the use of appropriate deterrence measures and notified the public of wolf activities in a timely manner. So that's the same thing. I mean, the stuff isn't working, and we've let people know that there's a problem. You know, they've announced it. So the lethal removal of wolves is not expected to harm the wolf population's ability to reach recovery objectives statewide. So what they're saying is, if they have a small core area where all of a sudden they have these few wolves that are starting to have depredation issues with livestock, but it's the only couple wolves in that whole entire region, they're not going to go in and remove those wolves. They're only going to remove those wolves if they're in an area where the population is stable, and going in and removing a few problem wolves isn't going to stop the migration of the wolves across the landscape, or not going to cause a conflict where the wolf numbers are now in trouble because we shot the last known female, or we shot the last known male.
So, which is interesting, let's stop right there for a second, because the big rub on this whole deal is that that particular area is the problematic area.
Right.
They've had wolf packs that they removed, and another pack moves in, becomes problematic.
Right.
Because whatever is on the landscape that those wolves are drawn to because they really like it there. Right. Oh, by the way, there just happens to be several thousand cattle that are ranched in this area.
Right.
And, we were talking about before the show, and I talked about this with Jay Keeney, cattle aren't like sheep and stuff. They're not herd animals per se that they like to stay in close proximity. Cows get out on the landscape. They just kind of roam. They'll go off in little groups of 2 and 3 and 5 and just kind of spread out and do their thing. Makes them easy targets for wolf packs. And that's why the problems are reoccurring and so high and so frequent. The fact that we have reintroduced wolves to the landscape of where they once roamed, okay, cool, I get it. The fact that they're going to do what they have to do to survive, and that is take down deer and elk and whatever else they can find, they're going to do that. They're going to behave like wolves. The fact that you have slow-moving cows on hooves just kind of wandering around that are now kind of, cows, they're kind of dumb, but they also figure stuff out. They're trainable. They know the presence of wolves. Some of those cows have been reared up now in the presence of wolves, right? They've experienced wolves their entire life. That being said, they have no defense mechanisms. You're going to continue to have this battle of wolves go easy prey, easy selection, go fight that big elk or take down this cow. Right. What are the wolves going to do? So I guess I read a ton of comments online on multiple platforms. The biggest issue folks are having, and their complaint is valid, is like we keep it's Groundhog's Day. We keep repeating ourselves. We remove wolves, lethal methods, more wolves move into that area. Same problems occur for same ranchers. They come in, they remove a couple wolves. They're like, oh, the rest of them aren't going to deter either. So now we got to go. They've taken 9 wolves or 8 wolves out of that last pack, OPT or whichever pack it was. So now there's a void there, but how long is it going to take for the box to fill back up with more wolves in that general area? There is 2018 counts. I provided you that there, Barnum.
126 wolves,
there you
27 packs, at least 15 breeding pairs.
So, and that is in that northeast quadrant. And we've talked extensively about the fact that there's 3 zones or quadrants recognized. You got the North Cascades and you have the coastal. And the question continues to come up, if we continue to eliminate wolves and they're not allowed to continue to move on the landscape because, well, if you take them out here, they're just going to kind of keep coming back to this area because it's not overpopulated and there's plenty of food. How are we ever going to get the other zones populated to where they can delist them?
I would just counterpoint that so the wolf removal in the Profanity Peak area has been going on now for 5-6 years. They've been killing, maybe longer. But if you look at a graph of wolf population in Washington State, the graph is going like this. So even though, talking from a livestock producer standpoint, if I'm a rancher and I'm in that area, this isn't a problem that has been fighting me since I was a young kid and I took the ranch over from my family. This is a problem that has started in the last 15 to 20 years.
That I now get to deal with.
That I now have to deal with, and the state should be obligated to help me deal with this problem. I mean, it's not my choice to have 29 cattle killed within a year period or 2.
So, and that's a valid point. You got guys over there ranching that have had long-standing family ranches, been there for years. Now we've reintroduced wolves. Okay, great. And for those of us that live on the west side or in the city or just go, screw those ranchers. They get money for every wolf that gets taken from, or for every cow that gets killed. The state or the feds are paying them. So if they lose it, it's not like they're lost out all that much. But, you got all these reasons or trying to rational the process. If those wolves were introduced over here in Washington State and they were just roaming around the neighborhoods and dragging off everybody's pets, you would have a different perspective on it.
Well, and that's the whole thing, and I think
just trying to put it in,
That's the number one argument that we hear all the time is it's easy to sit on the west side of the state and throw our opinion out to guys that are on the east side of the state, not understanding what they're dealing with on a daily basis. It's easy to sit in a high rise in Puget Sound and not care, oh, you lost a coyote or lost a chicken to a coyote, big deal, it's not my problem. Oh, you lost another cow to a wolf, not my problem. I mean, we need more wolves. Wolves are trying to do, well, I mean, it's just, that's the whole thing. And you have to protect the investment that these guys have as a business and as a farmer. You have to. I mean, you can't just say, you know what, good luck, guys.
Sorry, the wolves are here. You're going to have to defend yourselves. The fact is they have to find a way to continue working their livelihood and afford the opportunity to continue to farm and ranch and do those things with the wolves present. And I guess the question was put out there, well, is this now the MO of WDFW? You get to a certain point, if it's problematic, we're just going to go shoot every time. Well, it's in that plan.
Yes.
And as you said, the populations continue to go up.
Right.
So it's, it's finding balance. I'm not sure there's such a thing. You can even use the word balance when you have livestock and wolves.
Right.
The two are now made to be in the same speck of dirt at the same time.
A group of citizens sat down and developed a wolf management plan.
Yeah.
And the management plan is being followed.
Yep.
And at a point in time when the management plan is not being followed is when we should have concern.
That's when
whether it's removing wolves that are killing cattle or not opening a hunting season in an area, we need to follow the management plan. So as long as Fish and Wildlife follows it, it is the right thing that is happening.
One of the questions that continues to come up, and Arthur put it up here again, aren't a lot of these ranchers using state land to graze their cattle?
They are.
So where do you draw the line? It's like, well, if you don't want your wolves killed on state land, then move them onto your private ranch and fence them.
Right.
Free range grazing is an option.
Right.
If
but
you're
these
a
are
rancher,
also leases that the ranchers have had for
forever.
years, and they're
I
paying
get
the
it.
state a fee.
Yes.
And so,
yeah.
And
a lot of those have been long-standing.
Right.
Some of them are 50-year notes.
Right.
And they're maintaining the roads and they're doing all the things to keep the land up.
Absolutely. There's a lot.
That grazing is a huge reason why a lot of those areas that are heavily grazed don't break out in extreme wildlife. Wildfire.
Right.
Because
keep
grazing
the light fuels down.
Right. Yeah. Grazing is very important to preventing wildfire.
There's a lot of things that are connected to that free range grazing. I mean, it's been long established for a long time, and there's many layers to that. The fact that the cattle are there, it's not like they just started pushing the cattle out there a couple of years ago and then the wolves happened to be there. It's actually the other way around. I don't know, Doug, what the cost to us is. I had read at one point that, we're talking several $1 million a year to mitigate this wolf situation, and it's ongoing, but it's a line item budget that's been established. There is some monies that come from federal dollars that I was told from WDFW staff to offset the wolf management plan and mitigation of these animals. What those numbers are exactly, I don't know, but we can certainly dig those up maybe by next week. But we just continue to follow this because on social media it's a hot button, even for folks that live here on the west side, because it's a gauge of what's happening over there, and if these wolves finally find their way North Cascade, Coastal Range, well, we get them down there by you, they're going to get rid of all the hoof-diseased elk. That's the first ones to go, right? So, hoof rot. We'll see.
Or calves.
But more to come on that. It's interesting to follow, and it's interesting to get person's perspective via social media. And when environmentalist reporters like Allison put posts out there that I follow just to see what her perspective is on things and see how people rebuttal that, you can kind of draw the line down when you're reading through it. You can tell those folks that live in the high-rise in Seattle that you're talking about, and you can tell about the folks that are...
Don't spend too much time reading those comments, because you won't come away much smarter.
No. You just kind of take it for what it's worth. But yep. All right. That was a ton of info to get through. Appreciate you hanging in there. The ongoing conversations of habitat and conservation and stuff is not going away. That is something that is part of us and part of what we like to do, and we need to be involved with that. So the more we can help educate you folks on that and get you involved, the better we all are. The wolf thing will continue, and remember, Area 11 closes on Sunday. We are going to jump out for a break because we're a little bit behind. David, how did you let this happen? I don't listen. He's throwing stuff at me. I know. Put your shirt back on, for God's sakes. We're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back. We are going to have a little heart-to-heart with Austin BOOM POW Moser. We're going to talk all about, so you want to be a guide, huh?
Nope.
You want to jump into that guide world. Barnum, you and I both did it for a stint. Never did it full-time. Not that stupid, but not saying you're stupid. We're going to talk to you about that. I got a bunch of questions for you. I want you to paint a perspective for folks out there that think, hey, man, what's the big deal? You get to fish every day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you do. All right, jump out for a break. We'll be back with Austin BOOM POW Moser right here when we come back on FHN.
At Metals Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals. So we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Hey, welcome back to Fish on Northwest. Is that your phone blowing up over there, Barnum?
All day long.
Somebody bitching at you again. Yeah.
Not getting enough done in the week.
Well, apparently not. No, out there 16 hours a day with a headlamp on. Austin BOOM POW Moser, buddy. Known you for quite some time, and we met way back in the Feather Sticks days.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. So you've been guiding for quite some time now, and I had asked you before the show, how your guiding practices have changed as far as the fisheries you used to focus on versus the ones you basically are chasing around the state nowadays.
Yeah.
We're going to delve into that later on the show. First, I want to kind of paint a perspective on the grind that it is to be a guide today. First and foremost, you're at the whim of the state, the openings and closings,
Yep.
the opportunity given to you or not based on Mother Nature. There's a lot of things going against you. That being said, you spend how many days a year on the water?
I was trying to figure that out, and it varies from 260 to 280 to maybe even pushing 290 last year. Mm-hmm. This year seems like maybe a little bit more. I've done a few other fisheries I've transitioned into in the wintertime, and they had some great popularity, so I ended up fishing a little bit more. But I do a lot of sportsman shows, so those kind of take up that part of the time.
Yep.
So really, I don't get much time off. I take 20 days a year, in October, November, to just unwind and sit in a wall tent and chase elk around and chase deer around and hang with the guys and just totally unwind and not have to look at my boat.
That is that'll be our second discussion throughout the course of the evening. So let's do this. Starting with January, walk through the month of January. You're putting emphasis, or your focus on fishery is here. February, you're here. March, if you're fishing, it's where. How does that year look?
Yeah, so in January it's show season. So I'm getting ready to start the first show of the year, which is usually Puyallup for me, which is in late January. I start fishing in January. I'll start on Lake Roosevelt, and we're chasing for those big trophy kokanee. That's kind of how I base my business. Is I'm trying to take people out there and catch trophy kind of fish.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to catch little smaller, planter trout or things like that. I'm trying to
10-inch kokanee in January just doesn't do it for a lot of folks.
Exactly. I'm trying to
go to Chelan and hang out with 2 other boats.
-20.
Yeah.
-20 and 10-inch kokanee is not fun.
No.
So I'm trying to optimize the greatest value I can get for my customers in that time of the year. And so Lake Roosevelt is where it's at for me. So I'm chasing those big kokanee and the rainbows up there. Where I'm based out of, I have several different things that I can do. So January, February is mostly trout, kokanee fishing up there, and then I'll start transitioning into walleye. Well, then I'll bounce back and I'll do a trout or a kokanee trip, and the next day I might be fishing walleye. So I can be on Banks Lake, Columbia River, and the Upper Columbia. Some of these other places that I don't really like to mention because those are kind of my spots.
Are you going home on most of these nights, or you stay over a couple nights in a row and run trips at multiple locations? Or
you're out of
Wenatchee, right?
Yeah, I live in Wenatchee.
Yeah.
Most of the time in the winter, I'm running out of Grand Coulee. I got a trailer up there. I got a great friend that has a place to keep my trailer and put my boat in a heated shop at night. So that's pretty nice to get all my batteries charged and dried out. So I do that through January, February, March time frame. I'm doing a lot of that, and then I'll transition into sturgeon fishing. And so all the while, I'll still be bouncing back to kokanee, walleye, and sturgeon. So there's a lot of these things that you have to, kind of do what your customers want to do, basically. Right. And for me to stay busy, that's kind of what I have to do. And being a year-round guide is not an easy thing to do. You have to travel. You have to stay on top of what's popular, what people want to fish for. That's the big thing, is what trips you can sell to people, because not everybody wants to do certain things. Right. I have customers that come and they fish with me in January for kokanee, then they come out in the end of February or March timeframe, they do walleye, then they'll come and do sockeye with me in July, and that's kind of how it works. They'll do every fishery throughout the year with me, and we'll be at buoy 10, and then my whole year starts over again. So January, February, March, we're in the Grand Coulee area, Lake Roosevelt, Banks Lake, Upper Columbia. And then we rotate into Columbia River around Wenatchee for sturgeon, doing keeper or oversized, depending on if they allow me to keep fish for retention. This year they didn't. It kind of hurt that fishery for me. So I put more emphasis on the Kettle Falls fishery on Lake Roosevelt. And I did 15 days up there. It was pretty good fishing. It was scratch fishing for a lot of guys, but I found a little niche, and we made it happen. We killed 9 keeper sturgeon in 14 days, which was pretty good ratio compared to some of the reports I was getting from other people. And it's a highly competitive fishery up there.
Was there quite a few boats?
There was.
Seriously?
Yes, there was.
Because they've only opened that up the past couple of years.
Yeah,
and fairly relatively new opportunity for guys, and it's one of those you got to figure out. We had you on. You weren't fishing that fishery yet. You were fishing. I forget where you were. We were doing your comparative of your oversize to Barnum's lower estuary fishery.
Oh, yeah.
So, but the Kettle Falls fishery, how deep of water were you in there?
That place, it's a totally different style of fishing versus river fishing, because I'll be fishing 200-foot hole, and you're anchored and there's hardly any current. Depending on where you go, if you go in the upper end of it, there's a little bit of current, but if you're down in the lower end of it, there's no current. So if the wind comes up, your boat will spin around backwards, and your baits are going towards the front of your boat instead of out the back.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, people will use like rear anchors and stuff like that, and then you're like worried about getting them tangled. But I learned how to set my TR1 in reverse mode this year, which I never knew how to do that.
Look at the big brain on Austin, huh?
And so that worked great for me. But that's a fun fishery.
I'm surprised that you're saying it was pretty competitive. That's interesting. I mean, it just shows you, given opportunity and time, guys are going to start figuring these fisheries out and taking advantage of.
A lot of out-of-town folks, like not from that area.
A lot of Idaho guys.
A lot of Idaho guys.
You know,
they're following their kokanee over.
Well, the Springer season wasn't great, and a lot of the different things that are shutting down for those guys, the steelhead, and I don't know exactly what the ins and outs are of it, but it's opportunity. And people want to catch sturgeon. People want to eat sturgeon.
People want to eat sturgeon.
So it's a 53 to 63 inch slot limit up there. So it's a big fish. I caught 62 and a half inch fish. I caught 3 of them this year.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
That's big fish.
That's big. It's like 100 pounders.
It never ceased to amaze me how many people want to fish sturgeon.
Right.
You know, I mean, we were shark fishing back in the day, and that was such a huge fishery for me. But then the sturgeon fishermen and guys constantly wanting to go sturgeon. I'm erasing shark days to take sturgeon fishermen. It's like, what is going on?
Don't you guys want to catch sharks?
Right.
Yeah.
I've had years in the past where instead of summer Chinook fishing, I was getting back from Alaska, I was running a bunch of keeper sturgeon trips.
Yeah.
And I didn't hardly fish the upper Columbia for salmon.
So what's after sturgeon?
Sturgeon. So then we'll bounce around. We'll do the sturgeon, walleye, and a lot of different stuff. And then I'm getting ready. I'm doing sockeye in July. Summer Chinook around Chelan Falls, Wells Dam, Brewster Pool, that deal. Obviously, this year we didn't have the sockeye. We were all kind of hopeful that they were going to be wrong, but they didn't show. The summer Chinook showed a little bit better than they said they were gonna.
Yeah, and the fishing was good.
Been a good fishery. We had a great time doing that. But then it was buoy 10 time. And when it comes to salmon fishing, that's where I'm gonna be. And that is a great opportunity to catch an awesome fish.
How about how that fishery is performing? Well, now that the Chinook fishery is closed as of the 20th, but the first 20 days of that fishery, based on preseason forecasts and models, and you're going to have Chinook opportunity for 20 days, but we have a million coho come back, so just look forward to that. Well, that Chinook fishery took off down there, even on poor tides. Once it kicked around, man, you can tell us about it. I mean, that thing performed exceptionally well.
It's been really, I would say it's been really good. It's been kind of spotty because now I'm just realizing why it was kind of spotty is these fish are flying by. If you look at the 10-year average, we're way over the 10-year average for Bonneville. We were just looking before the show. We're at like over 12,000 fish over Bonneville right now. Already 12,000 Chinooks, and it was like 2,200 jacks. So those fish weren't really slowing down. They were flying by us, and we were all kind of talking and thinking it's small pods, and if you can stay on those fish, but they were moving so fast, you could have some exceptional days. And I had some killer days where I just stayed on them, and I had other days that weren't as good, and I'd get on them and then I couldn't find them again. Right. So that's a big part of that fishery. And there was some exceptional fish being caught when the upriver brights would come in. There's going to be some really big fish this year, I think in the Hanford Reach. But there was a lot of these, 28, 29 inch. People were calling them tulies, but I don't think that they're tulies. They're hatchery fish. And to me, a tule is a wild fish. That's they're a lower river fish. But we're catching a lot of these hatchery, lower river hatchery. I don't know exactly where they come from, but there was a huge influx of these smaller fish this year. Yeah, that's what I heard. It was fun to catch them, but we're all there for these big upriver chrome bright fish.
I think fish camp could be pretty fishy.
I'm hoping September? they got the Deschutes going to be closed, Boundary. And that's one of our favorite spots to troll them pro trolls around. And
we got the mouth of Klickitat.
We do, and the hover fishing can be good down there.
And we get on that outside and we can troll too, so we'll see. Yeah. But that could perform pretty well. We'll know mid-September when we're over there.
I'm hoping we'll see some coho in there too.
That would be pretty interesting, wouldn't it? What do you got going after buoy 10 before we jump out for a break here?
Yeah, I'm gonna be like we were just talking, fish camp. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna fish up there around the Klickitat, that area, and then I will move up into the Hanford Reach. Hanford Reach could be really good this year. It's gonna be a 2-fish limit.
I think you'll see some big fish.
Yeah, and it's gonna be big fish. So I always tell people you want to come and catch a big fish where they spawn.
When's that derby?
The King of the Reach Derby is usually around the time they close, so like the 15th, 16th of October.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't looked at the actual closure date this year. I know they closed it early last year, and it was a 1 fish limit. They're expecting a better return this year, and it's a 2 fish limit right now. So
awesome.
We're excited.
All righty, well, don't go anywhere. We got more segments. We're going to talk a little hunting with you later on the show, and of course, we're also going to break down some of your fisheries and the not just the where, but the hows to help people out that might be tackling some of those fisheries and struggling a little bit. Also want to get your perspective that was thrown up here a couple times. Question on the pending, you know where I'm going, Barnum.
Yes.
The pending guide logbooks that are going to be mandatory starting January 1st, 2020.
Can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Let's see if you wait. I know. I didn't just throw you under the bus and say, hey, how about if you answer this? We're going to talk about it at the break and kind of see where you're at. So
all right.
I'm taking care of you, buddy. So.
All
right, we're going to jump out for a break. We come back, we're going to get Tyler Comeau on the phone. He is the Communications Director of CCA Washington. There's a gillnet fishery going on right now as we speak, well, over the course of time here. 5 evenings, nighttime fisheries, so that we can avoid gear conflicts, is what I was told, to allow the commercials to go in and harvest a number of these Chinook. It sounds like the run's performing pretty well, so you go, well, they can have 5 days, no big deal. Problem is, we got low steelhead numbers in the water. We have steelhead in the water. We have steelhead being caught, and they're not to be kept. All steelhead are thrown back overboard, dead or alive, doesn't matter, as it cannot be counted as part of your catch. And we have extremely warm water.
Wild coho, too.
And wild coho. The likelihood of survivability on these steelhead is concerning, albeit WDFW says it's within their management plan. We're gonna let Tyler weigh in from CCA's perspective on this thing. Pay attention, because some great information here. And believe it or not, next week WDFW has the opportunity to rebuttal. We'll have Ryan on the phone to discuss their perspective and how this fishery was constructed. And it is not just a shot in the dark. This was an agreed to fishery in the North of Falcon process, is what I was told from WDFW. But we want to get with Tyler first this week, follow up rebuttal next week by WDFW. We'll have Tyler Comeau on the phone. We come back right here after the break on FHN. Get some. You're supposed to change those out. Oh, hey, welcome back, Fish on Northwest. I'm looking at the camera, David, trying to figure out which one you had on. You kind of switched it on me there. So, no? Okay. Well, you're on this one right here. So here we are. Barnum is changing batteries. So all of a sudden we got into an interesting... What is that noise? Oh, okay. All right. Do we have Tyler on? Yeah, okay. Tyler Comeau, Communications Director, CCA Washington, joining us here. Tyler, how you doing this evening?
Hey, I'm doing good, Dwayne. How are you guys?
Hey, we're doing good. Let me turn you up a little bit here. I can barely hear you. Talk right into that phone so we can hear you, buddy. So, hey, Tyler, you and I talked earlier in the week. I'd also been on the phone with WDFW quite a bit, trying to grasp an understanding or wrap my head around this conducted commercial gillnet fishery that's going on for 5 evenings over the course of the next couple weeks on the main stem Columbia. And if we remember right, and you can remind us if I'm wrong, but these fisheries are being conducted at a time where we've had some rollback from the commission based on the original gillnet reform plan on the Washington side, and some changes came about, albeit this is fall fisheries. It doesn't necessarily encounter, obviously, the spring or the summer Chinook, as it were. The numbers weren't high enough to allow them to have a fishery. So from what I was told, they are conducting a fishery that was agreed to in the North Falcon process on fall fish based on the supported data that supports the run. But the problem here is we have encounters of steelhead and coho, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We do. And let me lead off with, these fisheries have been agreed to in the North of Falcon process, but public input is part of the North of Falcon process. And who agreed to these fisheries? Regrettably, these are the fisheries managers who have been overseeing consistent steelhead fisheries and run size decline. So, regrettably, these have been agreed to, sure, but these fisheries are being persecuted right now with a steelhead run that's actually tracking below an already poor prediction, and it's tracking to now be the lowest run since 1975.
Yeah, correct. So we have we have a conservation concern is what we have in the realm of steelhead, and typically fisheries are modeled based on the highest impact to the fish that, I guess, put in layman's terms, is struggling the most. So if we have high encounter rate on these steelhead, of which, by the way, according to WDFW, these steelhead encounters are not documented this year. 2 years ago, they had onboard observers, and it changed their perspective and their model numbers they acquired based on the high encounter rate. And I can't tell you what that encounter rate was in 2017. Perhaps you could if you have that number. But based on that modeling, they're utilizing it for this year without observers on board, because I asked if it was a budgetary deal. They said no. Of all things, it's an insurance issue with the observers being on board private commercial gill nets. There's an insurance conflict. Lawyers are involved. So there's no observers on board to truly grasp how many steelhead are encountered on each gill net and how many are simply thrown back into the water and whether they're dead or alive. There's no mandate that the commercial gill net fishermen or requirement that tells them that they have to document every steelhead encounter and provide that information to the state. The state is simply using the model that they acquired from 2017. Do you have any additional information in regards to that on what those encounter percentages or rates are?
Yeah, so previously, the department was working off of a 1.7%, so we're a 0.017 to every encounter rate. That was prior to 2017. 2017, there was a 2.9% encounter rate, so they catch 0.029, so about 3% steelhead to every 100 Chinook, 3 steelhead to every Chinook they encounter. And that was in observations of 2017. And that was a very poor steelhead year, too. So there weren't very large numbers of steelhead in the river in proportion to Chinook that year either. You can only imagine that on an average steelhead year, we have a much higher incident rate. The one thing I'd like to add to that, though, is even though they've increased the encounter rate on steelhead after 2017, from their stats and their landing monitoring, they lowered the mortality rate as a result. So it's regrettably not a go, and the fact they don't have monitoring on these boats due to an insurance issue. Well, I'd like to know why it's different. They can have monitoring, or at least video monitoring, on boats in just about every commercial fishery in Alaska. This really leads to more questions questions of intent than anything else, in my opinion.
Can you remind us exactly how many days of this gillnet fishery have been conducted, and or how many days they have remaining?
Yeah, so we are on, it finished, it was day 3 last night of 5 days that were scheduled. The days were approved first night of fishing on August 12th. The first day they went in was Wednesday the 14th. And then Monday, Wednesday, they fished this week, and then they will be fishing next Monday and Wednesday of next week from the mouth of the Lewis, essentially zones 4 and 5, up to South Beacon Rock.
Okay. Do you know how many fishermen are participating in this opportunity, or how many boats are on the water?
Yeah. So I can say that I'm looking at the data right here from the state, from their preliminary catch estimates, there were 56 deliveries on Monday's fishery, so I would assume about 56 boats on Monday. Okay. The first opener, there were 40 deliveries. So we're not talking about a whole ton of gill netters out there. Again, this is a very small, economically really small fishery, and we've not many participants at all. Yeah,
do you know what the total catch has been thus far? What they've recorded as far as Chinook?
Yeah, so for the first 2 days, we were at just under 1,900 Chinook in the first 2 days.
How much was that, 1,900?
1,900 total for the first 2 days. That's the total. Okay.
So, I mean, if you attach three steelhead per every 100 fish, we're at 1,900 fish, so...
Right, so...
Yeah.
57 steelhead.
The department, the previous rate, we're at about 60 steelhead caught so far.
Okay. I don't know, the state didn't give me what their impact number would be, like if they went over, if it was a stop fishing type of an order, or if they had even a bar that had to be kept under before that happened. Do you know if they gave you any indication if there was a total number that they would allow?
So that's the frustrating part. I was at the compact meeting and testified there where they approved of this gillnet fishery, and I asked if they had the exact number on their impact. They would not. They did not answer that question directly. So I don't know the exact number. I can say on a similar wild bee run component, which was the limiting factor to the gillnet fishery for fall Chinook in 2017, I believe it was 6.4 fish. So that fishery was closed early.
Yeah.
They closed that fishery early when they had monitors because they caught too many fish. And that didn't include wild steelhead that were dumped by a gillnet boat in Astoria.
Right.
That were witnessed. The guy got a ticket for it, but those weren't counted as part of those fish. So I mean, the number clearly was higher, and regrettably, it's higher than what the department. We believe it's definitely higher than what the department's looking at.
Do you think it's too much to ask from the gill netting fleet as we're trying to manage our fisheries collectively and truly grasp our impacts, that they would be required to record those encounters with steelhead? I mean, they'll give us a handful of reasons why they can't do it. Oh, it's just one guy fishing. I'm pulling in my net. I don't have time to document that, right? I can't do this alone, or just whatever the reasons are. But to me, it seems, especially in a season or a year return where the numbers are so low and it's so critical that we meet escapement on the upper stretches of the Columbia, that any and all encounters of steelhead should be monitored. And if the state cannot afford, or maybe afford is not the right word, but can't do it due to this insurance litigation that's going on currently amongst their lawyers, you would think that they could simply mandate that these folks are to, and I get it, they probably wouldn't be truthful and accurate anyway, but the fact is, if it's mandated that they are to record their encounters, don't you think it at least help in monitoring these fisheries more accurately?
You'd really like to think so, wouldn't you? I mean, it's honestly mind-boggling when you sit back or step back from the situation and look at it as if you're a neutral party. I mean, we're talking about ESA-listed threatened fish.
Right.
That is, we're on fourth year in a row of declining runs to record low numbers, and literally we have zero observations. We're not even operating, as you say. I mean, we're not even taking a tally from the boats. We're not even operating on an honor system.
Yeah.
They're just looking at fish tickets and making an estimation. And I think that's pretty irresponsible, considering we're talking about the Endangered Species Act, and in all likelihood, 6 or 7 fish based off the run size they can catch and kill, and their fishery would have to be closed immediately. So it's pretty dang frustrating and mind-boggling.
It seems like another opportunity where, whether it be sportsmen or, agency employees would be willing to volunteer their time to, be part of some program where they could help with the recording of this impact.
You bet, and that's one of the challenges, though, of them conducting the stillnut fishery at nighttime as well.
Right.
This is a nighttime fishery. They're off the water. They're supposed to be done fishing at 6 a.m. So you're out there in the pitch black, and you're trying to monitor it. I mean, the worst off, in my opinion, they should have cameras on these boats, which that's common. We have former NOAA fisheries observers that work for our organization,
Right.
and they worked in Alaska. There are cameras on boats there. There aren't observers. Otherwise, there's observers on every boat up there in many of these fisheries where they're worried about bycatch. And gill nets are not selective. This is a non-selective fishery being persecuted in 71-degree water on fish that they need every bit of help they can get. And regrettably, the management of the state is allowing gill netters to go out there and catch salmon, and they're harming steelhead in the process.
Yeah, until we come up with selective measures when we have critical low runs such as this steelhead return currently that we're experiencing. Unfortunately, some of these commercial fisheries are going to have to take a back seat, because conservation should come first and foremost, not what the lobbyists are able to get accomplished at the state level. So, Tyler, as always, we appreciate your time. Tyler Comeau, Communication Director of CCA Washington. Don't be a stranger, as there's constantly things to discuss and battles to be won. So appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, appreciate it. And one last thing, I just wanted to say, Austin, you talked about King of the Reach on the Hanford Reach. For those wanting to participate in the world's largest broodstock live capture derby.
Oh, yeah.
This year will be last weekend in October, pardon me, the 25th through 27th. So check that out at ccawashington.org. Come out and have a great time and help the resource. Catch fish so we have better hatchery production and come make a difference. We appreciate you guys, and a great show again tonight. Thanks for all that y'all do. All
right. Thank you, Tyler. We'll be in touch. Yeah, good point. Good point from him. Come on out there and help. That derby generates that broodstock.
Yeah, all you buoy
Right.
10 guys that love catching those upriver brights,
Yeah.
come on up there and help the hatcheries get their fish.
So that we can keep that program
so that
going.
we've got those fish down there to fish for. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great program.
Yeah, it's a fun derby, and lots of fish are collected. And
By the time that thing rolls around, I'm so burned out already. I've been fishing for 11 months or something, and the Buoy 10 fishery down there is an awesome fishery, but I tell you what, it wears a guy out. It's rough water.
Yeah.
And so,
well, then you go and do stupid things like join us on this show. Then you got a 2-hour and 15-minute drive back down. But
yeah, I'm fishing in the morning.
yeah, I know you are.
Yeah. I had the day off, and I came up here for the show.
Well, I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
We do appreciate that. So, all right, that was a little tough to hear, Tyler. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get that worked out. Hopefully, you guys got the gist of the conversation. Lots of good information there, concerning, albeit, with the impacts on those steelhead. Yeah, 3 steelhead out of every 100 Chinook caught doesn't sound like much, but at the end of the day, end of 5 days, and we have such low numbers right now. My biggest rub on this whole thing, and next week we'll get into it with WDFW, not like get into it, but we'll have the discussion, is when we are trying to monitor these fisheries, how come when we have opportunity to dial it in a little tighter, like observers on board or cameras or whatever it would take to ensure we're face value on this stuff,
right.
Why it's so damn hard to get this stuff taken care of?
Yeah, why are these guys, why do they have so much power?
Yeah, so much secrecy, right? It's like, get it out there, let us monitor these fisheries the way they need to be. I mean, they have a lot of guesswork that goes into some of these fishery management. You know, these flyovers of Puget Sound and attaching rods per vessel and vessel pressure and total accumulation, because they don't have the personnel. We get it. This all comes back to budget, Barnum. Right. Then boots on the ground and people at creel counts at the takeouts and all. We get all that. And you have to utilize models that pre-existing have worked, you know, somewhat favorably over the course of the years of managing these fisheries and stuff. Something like this, a 5-evening targeted fishery, 9-inch mesh, Chinook gillnet fishery, 60 boats on the water, 40 to 60, we'll say, randomly, 5 nights of pressure, and they're going to take out several thousand Chinook. What truly is our steelhead encounters? It could pay favorably towards the gillnets to say the percentage is so low, it's minuscule, it doesn't have an impact on our hatchery take or our escapement needs. There's the other side of that. It could, it could, right? Or it could say, no, the impacts are too great, you guys should only had 3 days. Right. Or whatever it is. But at least, you know, tote the line and get the factual numbers.
We live in an era of real-time data.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is getting crazy that fisheries like this, whether it be on the rec side or the commercial side, that when we live in an area of right now real-time data, that we can't track this stuff.
You could get an intern that is working with WDFW or some other conservation agency with a data collection, even a program on a phone. Yep. Steelhead, wild, hatchery, whatever.
Chinook,
right?
Coho, and just be tracking it.
And just see what happens.
Yep.
Anyway,
we're back in 1970s with these guys.
We're still running 1970 tactics in a 2020 world that is just real time right now.
It's crazy.
We'll get IT David on it. He's going to call the state tomorrow and get this handled.
Let's get funding to build an app, David.
Speaking of which, we will have WDFW on next week on the 29th. About 8 o'clock or so in the evening, and we'll have this discussion with Ryan and see the state side of this, and they can probably set us straight for us bad mouthing them right now. So actually, I don't think we said anything too bad. So we're just throwing it out there, man. We just wanted factual data, and I know you guys love what we do. So here we go. Okay, jump out for a quick break. We come back, Austin. It's time to take a little break from fishing. Barnum, you're gonna like this. We're talking a little hunting. Yeah. East side, west side. Some of the hunts you look forward to. What you truly do as far as, are you one of them full on, hey, let's go set up elk camp kind of a thing for 2 weeks and, a little whiskey in the evening and sit around and tell stories and try to shoot an elk? The archery hunt, the rifle hunt. What goes on with Boom Pow, Black Powder Moser during hunting season when we come back right here on FHN.
Come out to break a night, and the pink skies waving goodbye. come out to break the night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free a reckless heart. She's trying to be a slide as the breeze. The queen of art, Friday morning. The queen of art, Friday morning. Come out to break the night, you'll be wearing her charm so frail. Yeah, she's trying to avoid everyone.
You're going to tell me why. Yeah, I know I'm back on. You're going to tell me why.
I'll tell you why.
Okay. I told him to get the right camera this time. He was like, yeah, that was on me. Welcome back to Fish on Northwest. Just busting David's chops. Does a fantastic job each and every week. You know, it's nice to see him screw up once in a while because he is actually human.
I don't think it was him. I think I screwed up because my batteries were dead. And so he was trying to make me not look like an idiot.
Oh, he's trying to make you not run off camera.
Thanks, David.
But I'm looking, anyway. You know, if we just did this with a phone, one dimension.
Right.
No issues, but hey, we're not that simple. Anyway, Austin Moser, you are an accomplished hunter in my mind. I've seen some of the animals you put down over the years. You do pretty well over there. Mostly hunt on the east side, do some out-of-state stuff. It's getting towards hunting season. When do you hang up the fishing rods for a few weeks and get after it? What do you mostly focus on? Deer, elk, time of year? What's your deal?
So for me, my fishing and guiding kind of dictates what I can do and what I can't do.
Ruins everything, doesn't it?
It does.
Gets in the way.
It's horrible. So when I do rifle elk hunting, I do that. East side. Okay. Or I'll go and I'll do a little bit in Idaho. Mm-hmm. I have in the past. I haven't done that a lot of times, but I really like Idaho. It's a nice place. I do archery deer hunting in the late hunt for mule deer, and that's mostly just because the time frame. You know, that late hunt is in November, I think it is, to December 8th or something. Yep. So it's Thanksgiving. My wife's always mad. She wants me home for Thanksgiving, but I always seem to, a lot of years I sneak out and do a half-day hunt on Thanksgiving.
Right. What we've been doing is we just, Thanksgiving is just a date on the calendar, right? We just hold our Thanksgiving before the season, have family over, do that deal, and then when Thanksgiving comes, I'm hunting.
That's a good idea. I think my wife's actually watching the show, so you heard it here.
Right.
You heard it here.
Yep.
Nice.
My family's just got used to Dad's not going to be home on Thanksgiving.
Right.
Actually, my wife takes the kids to a movie usually. And
I've never killed anything on that half-day hunt, but if I did kill something, it's an all-day hunt.
Well, you got to go walk. You got to go walk off that turkey, or at least get some exercise before you eat all the turkey.
Right. So that's kind of what I do. I do some of that. I do a little bit of duck hunting and stuff like that, but my fisheries have grown so much. December, I got people calling me wanting to go. Like I did trout and kokanee trips like December 1st and 2nd last year. I did one the day after Christmas.
Wow.
So people are starting to want to go earlier and earlier for that fishery up there. And so pretty much I work the month of December about, I probably work 15 days in the month of December. And then I move into January and then I really start rolling with the sportsman shows and fishing and all that stuff. So I used to do a ton of predator hunting. That was kind of my passion for a lot of years. For probably 10, 12 years, we'd do that spotlighting for coyotes and bobcats and raccoons, and that was a lot of fun. But that takes away from your whole day because you go out all night and then you want to sleep the whole day the next day.
And once you get going doing it, it's like, we're going to call it a short night. Next thing you know, it's 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. And then I used to do a lot of calling in the daytime. We'd go out at night and hunt till daylight, and then we'd do calling. And so I like to do a lot of predator hunting. I haven't done it as much lately. Big game hunting has been a lot of fun. I used to be mostly a deer hunter, but I've gotten into this elk hunting thing for like about the last 7 years.
So what part of the state are you doing the rifle elk hunt? Is that?
So I've been hunting the Clockham because it's right in my backyard. It's where I live.
Now, is that a spike only for rifle?
It is, and that is part of the reason why I started going to Idaho, because it's so easy to get in trouble over there. I mean, it's a true spike hunting where you can only kill a true spike. So that means it has to be perfect spike on both sides. Well, sometimes these spike are kind of lazy, and so they don't get all their velvet rubbed off. So you might have a little piece of velvet on the top of his horn. Well, sometimes it's hard to tell if it's velvet or if it's horn. And there's so many hunters that when you get on the herd, you only got a split second to make a decision to kill that animal or not, or someone else is going to shoot it, or they're going to run over the hill. So it's getting to where it's hard to pull the trigger anymore over there.
Plus, it's the adage of, a guy wants the experience of going out and shooting a nice bull, or at least have the opportunity in the morning to believe that today's the day I'm going to kill this big bull. And when you're going out on a true spike hunt, it's like,
it's a meat hunt.
I hope I get a spike.
It's like finding a unicorn, So when I went and hunted Idaho, I loved Idaho. I did a horseback hunt, and the first year out, do it myself hunt, I killed a 6-point bull. On an over-the-counter tag in Idaho. It was the first branched antler bull I ever killed, and it was epic for me. He was only a 300-inch bull, but he was heavy-horned, nice older regressed bull. His ivories were worn down just to the nubs. And it was really cool. And so I'm really looking forward to doing some more Idaho hunting. Unfortunately, this year I wasn't able to get a tag where I wanted to, so I'm gonna stay home and do the home hunt again, hang out with the buddies in the wall tent for a week, and
now you do that mostly on like a day hike type thing, or are you guys staying in the backcountry at all, or are you back to camp every night?
Yeah, we're driving trucks around and spotting elk from miles away and driving as fast as we can to get close, and then we jump out and we run over the hills until we're about to puke, and we get close enough to where we can get a shot, But before all the other orange dots start closing in on the herd, So.
I mean, that's very similar to rifle west side, except you have to shoot 3-point or better on this side, but it's the same concept for the most part.
And you guys probably see a lot of spikes.
I mean, you really do. And the same thing happens here, because you'll get a lot of spikes that they'll have a brow tine, or maybe they'll have a fork on top and no brow tine. So you still do get a lot of elk shot that are like, ooh. But I mean, you have to know your target as a hunter. That's
you do.
Job.
What about archery? You do, don't you do archery for deer?
I do. I do archery late hunt for deer, and I do the Swakane unit because, once again, it's in my backyard. I know the area.
Mostly spot and stock?
Mostly spot and stock, that one is a lot of fun. Haven't had great success.
But not near the pressure.
Well, there's quite a bit of pressure.
Is it really?
Yeah, because it's the only place where you can really go and chase those big trophy migrant deer over the counter tag. So there is a lot of pressure in that unit, and it really takes away from the hunt, because you got guys that are pushing these deer. They're not, you could be stalking a deer and someone else happens to see what you're doing, and they try to run out ahead of you and get ahead of you. And they end up bumping the deer, and nobody gets the shot. So there's a lot of pressure in that hunting in that unit. But then again, you can see some world-class deer. We always talk about 90 yards is like that magic number. It's so hard to get less than 90 yards from a 180-inch mule deer. It's like he knows that you're just out of range. And so that's the challenge, I guess.
Well, I guess
crunchy
if
snow.
Archery hunting was easy, then there'd be no rifle hunters.
That's right. That's right.
That's a good point. So we kick off our archery opportunity September 1st here for deer, obviously, and September 7th for elk. Barnum and I are trying to join our calendars, team up again. And last year I was fortunate. He introduced me to my first opportunity to go chase elk with my bow. And didn't get the opportunity to shoot one, but got the opportunity to stare one in the face at about 20 yards thanks to him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. You know, for guys that have been hunting elk for a long time and archery hunting exclusively perhaps, and you have multiple years under your belt but have yet to close that distance and be within, say, 15, 20 yards of an elk, to be out there on my first trip, day 3 or 4, whatever we had, when it finally stopped raining. And Barnum called him in, and holy crap, here he was. And I was just like, oh my God.
I've always wanted to do that.
It was amazing to be that close to you know, a big animal. And he wasn't like a monstrous bull, but for me, the closest having been to a bull versus like Northwest Trek, this was pretty damn impressive. And just didn't get opportunity with the way he was standing and the brush along his side and all that, but we chased him for a good couple hours and several miles. Had a heck of a good time, huh?
Played with that bull for days.
We did, man. It was exciting, and I was like, this is so much more exciting than deer hunting for me.
When you get an animal that big, that close to you, he could stomp a mud hole in you.
Well, and the chase that ensued, and the cat and mouse game with him calling and bugling and him responding and us closing the gap, and pushed out a couple spikes and moved a few cows off and got into the reprod and chasing this dude down. Just the whole experience, I was like, I would have paid him for that alone. Of course, I ain't giving him nothing. But
and it's the pure. It flips everything you know about hunting
completely.
When you're calling out correctly, everything you know about hunting gets flipped upside down. It doesn't make sense to you if you haven't taken part in it. How can you make that much noise, be that aggressive, charge at an animal, and have it come to you after all that? That doesn't make sense. I mean, guys that I hunt for the first time that come with me, you're like, this dude's crazy.
He is.
Like, we are not killing an elk like this. The next thing you know, there's elk in your lap, and they're going, what in the world? Like,
Barnum would look at the ground and go, oh, I can lift that tree branch. And he'd grab this log and just break it against other trees and throw boulders over the cliff. And I'm just like, what are you doing, bud?
Well, you're walking through the woods, you know, on a spot and stuff mule deer, like looking for a twig that big, hoping not to break it. I'm looking around for rotten trees that I can stomp on. And
it was pretty awesome. 9-day difference. I mean, I'd heard guys talking about that before, but to experience it with a veteran like him firsthand and go through that process and just compare that to my black deer or my blacktail archery hunts where I'm sitting all stealthy and quiet, trying to make sure they don't see me, smell me, hear me, nothing. Archery hunts for muleys out of a ground blind. It's a game changer, man. Totally different, but different animals, different techniques, different tactics, and it's all about just being ready for whatever it is you're going to take on.
Well, we live in a cool time right now with archery elk hunting. Now that there's so many people that are teaching how to call. I mean, you got Phelps who's really teaching people, and there's so many other guys that are teaching that. I mean, what took me 23, 24 years to develop and learn, you can go listen to a seminar and pick all that up overnight. It's crazy.
And the equipment has changed so much over the last 10 years. It's great.
Well, you got guys like, Barnum just mentioned, Phelps revolutionizing the industry with the stuff they're coming out with, their entire call line. And pretty lucrative too. He's building that nice big new shop, and there's definitely people want to gain the knowledge. They want to, pursue elk. They want to go about it a different way. They're frustrated with season after season of failure and stuff that's happening now, and the things that are out there on the market, and the seminars you can go to, and the information that you can gather within a day. Is a game changer.
The average elk hunter, I think, in Washington State kills a bull every 14 years.
Is that right?
One bull every 14 years.
I'm getting mine this year.
And I think I've been
and if I don't, it's your fault.
19 years in a row, I think I've killed an elk.
Or you're a freak.
I've killed
straight out elk camp.
I've killed 5 elk in 7 years or something.
So way above
I've
average.
had pretty good success. But we're not the average hunters in my camp.
Right. Well, it's just like fishing.
Go for it.
10% of the fishermen catch 90% of the fish. It's the same way with hunting, but probably
there's a reason I go elk hunting with him.
Right.
I'm totally jealous. I could tell you that. I've always wanted to do that archery hunt where those bulls are coming and blowing snot and wanting to fight, and you're ready to shoot them, and I've always wanted to do that, but I'm always doing this.
Too busy working.
To put it in perspective, I've had a few times where they're too close to shoot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. It's fun.
All right, awesome. Well, good luck on if, in fact, you do get out and pursue some of those critters. You know, again, it's all about balancing our schedule this year with as busy as we are, and try to get a few days here and there, and hopefully we get to tangle with one or two, right, Barnum? Yep. So I guess we'll see. Time to get my cameras out on my private land, sounds like. That's my backup plan, right? Or I'll check in with my buddy Andy, who's joined up there and watching, because he's got plenty of opportunity to go kill some critters. All right, we're going to jump out for a break. We come back. We're going to be in the kitchen with Chef and Sherry for the recipe of the week, cooking up some pheasant. Can't wait to see what they do with that. That pheasant was killed earlier this year, and out of the freezer into the kitchen with Chef, and we're going to do all that when we come back right here on FHN.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're here in the kitchen with Chef Kelly. And boy, you have some mojo going on over there. What's going on?
Hey, you know, I'm happy to finally start cooking my pheasant that we shot earlier this year.
Hey, you didn't even let me say it. I was going to guess it was pheasant.
Oh, it's chicken. It's no, it's actually a pheasant, guys. Okay. So today we're going to be making a honey five spice chicken, or pheasant, sorry. You got me on the chicken thing. I know it. Right? Okay, so what we're doing today is we're going to cook at sous vide techniques. And I wanted to show off this technique because there's some times where its application really does pay off. This marinade has a lot of sugar in it, so if you actually just pan-seared it, you might be towing the line of getting too much color on it. So, you know, that's where sous vide is good, because we're actually going to cook it in the bag just like this, in the water, and we're shooting for 148. That's going to be under what normally you would shoot for a chicken. Normally it'd be at least 155 because you have to deal with salmonella, but we don't really have salmonella with our wild game. Okay? Okay. That's a commercial problem. Okay, so you've marinated it. Yes. And you've put it in the vacuum seal. Yeah, well, I also dried it off. I mean, you can still see there's been a fair amount of liquid come out. Still, it pulled it out of it. So, yes, that's just the basic premise, is that you're going to season it, vacuum seal it, and cook it in here. Okay. So if I was going to do like a New York steak, same premise. Season it, put it inside the vacuum seal it, and then cook it inside here. And if you were going to shoot for like a medium rare, you go like 135 and you cook it in there. Then you take it out, dry it off, and then sear it. It's a perfectly done edge-to-edge cooked steak. You know, like typically, like if you cook a steak, you would have the center part would be your medium rare, then you have some gray area on top and bottom. That's not true with sous vide. It's really a great technique, and this is a good way to show it off. Okay, so let's start with our marinade. So we have some dark soy. This is a product that you're only going to find either online or at your Asian market. It's really hard to find even in your high-end supermarkets. So we're going to put 1 tablespoon of dark soy. The stuff is really strong, so got to go kind of light on it. About 2 tablespoons of hoisin. This is hoisin right here. It's you can get that at your regular grocery market. You know, it's also called like the Chinese barbecue sauce. That's what some people prefer. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna put 2 tablespoons.
And your cute little bear.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Well, it is an outdoor show. Yeah.
Give me some bear. You know, I want to cook some bear. Okay, so we're gonna put in. Yeah.
You hear that? Get some bear.
Get some bear for me.
Think Stephanie Barnum has got a bear before.
Oh, good. Yeah. I need that. Okay, so there is actually a 5-spice powder. You can actually make your own, but this brand is great. I get this at the Asian market. Okay. So I'm going to add about...
So it's an actual 5-spice powder.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, about a tablespoon of garlic, and we're good to go. So we're just going to add our pheasant.
So that's like 2 breasts.
2 breasts. Okay. This could probably be enough for probably 8 breasts. I mean, you know, for this size.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. So you can see this is a very thick, very strong marinade. So you only need, you know, a couple hours most to get maximum flavor out of this. Okay. All right. So that's what I did there. So that's ready to go. This is already cooked off, ready to go. Okay, so now we're going to work on our stir fry. So I just have some multicolored carrots here. I kind of pre-blanched them, and I took the strings off of the sugar snap peas. So, we got our pans nice and hot.
Some cool looking carrots. Oh.
Okay. Alrighty, get rid of that.
You still need this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So
almost took them away.
Yeah. Don't touchy.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so we just gotta dry off our pheasants.
Oh, yeah.
Just like that. Can I get a new towel?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, just dry this off. Just like that. Thank you. Okay, so remember, we're not really cooking this. We're just getting a crust on there and done. Because it's already cooked.
Wow.
Okay. We're going to add some garlic, a little bit of ginger.
Look at the colors. Smell-o-vision. We need that. You put quite a bit of oil on there. No?
Yeah, you know, the deal is that I don't want to, see, we're getting our good sear already. I just want to, because they're really stiff, you can see how it's like, because they're already cooked. So you're just trying to get some good surface contact.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have our ginger and garlic on our... And it's just a little bit of salt to the stir fry, but not much because, you know, we have our reserve marinade right here. Okay. And I just reduced that down. Make sure you cook it
Yeah, you need to cook that off, right?
Right, because you only have those raw juices, and that's just no bueno. Okay, and that's done. That's ready to go.
So good. Plating already?
Plating already.
Wow.
I'm gonna add a little bit of green onions, probably a tablespoon of each. Green onions and cilantro.
Okay.
Aren't those carrots pretty?
Yeah. All of it's just so, what am I trying to say? Colorful, but just bright.
Vibrant.
Vibrant. Thank you. That's the word.
I knew I was good for something.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Okay, so.
You know, little Wilson thought this was his hot tub earlier.
The hot dog.
A little bit of hotness on him, huh?
Yeah, right? Okay, so then we're going to take our reserve marinade that we cooked off. Don't go too heavy on this because it's pretty powerful.
Thank you.
Okay, just a little bit more green onions, cilantro. We'll do a little bit of sesame oil. Maybe sesame seeds too.
You know what I just realized?
What?
This meal's for me.
Yeah.
It's completely keto.
Completely keto.
Carrots are a little bit not so good, but still.
But I mean, for
natural
me,
carbs, it's good, right?
Yeah, I'm a carb freak, right?
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Okay.
This is your honey 5-spice pheasant with sugar snap peas.
Snap peas.
Stir fry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am really going to try to share this one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we dig in. We're going to go ahead and shoot it to you guys back down in the studio. What is going on with us?
I don't know. We're hungry.
I don't know. Both of us. Yeah, we must be starving. Okay, Chef.
Welcome back in the studio. Well, that was interesting. We actually got to watch that because some people were actually chiming in a little bit of television trickery there. It was definitely light out the windows. We did a cooking segment pre-recorded a little earlier today just because of time restraints, and Chef had to get on the road. So, magic of television, we still were able to squeak it in. But nonetheless, got it done. He's out of here. And you got to enjoy the recipe. So there we go. All right, shoot much pheasant there, Austin?
Not in the last few years, but I used to be a pretty big upland bird hunter when I was a kid, in my early 20s and stuff.
Yeah. It sounds like this fishing thing going from like 250 to like 290 days a year is becoming a problem.
Yeah. You don't have time to do anything else.
That's pretty much it. You know?
Good for the bank account, but bad for the hobbies.
It is.
You should retire and fish and hunt all the time then.
You know, when you book so far out, you can't get days off.
Right.
So, that's a problem.
You don't get sick days? You don't get sick days?
Well, if I want to give them their money back.
Yeah, good point.
I'm kind of greedy.
A little bit. Yep. Well, hey, we got a few more things to tackle with you while you're still in the hot seat before you get on out of here and head back down to Astoria.
Let's put them in the real hot seat.
Let's do that. Let's move them close to that fireplace.
Red.
Okay, we are going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to close out the show with Austin BOOM POW Moser. We'll do that right after this break, right here on FHN.
At Metal Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals, so we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Hey, welcome back to Fish on Northwest. In studio, Dwayne on the Barnum, the Boom POW, the David in the corner. The cooking crew is done for the evening, and we're just about to get out of here as well. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about some of your fisheries, not specific locations and whatnot, but how much have you expanded, say, from the first couple of years you were fishing? You were mostly probably targeting salmon and steelhead. Now you're all over the place. How's that growth been for you?
You know, when I first started, it was hard to find people that wanted to come fishing with me. Nobody really knew who I was. Mm-hmm. I was a good fisherman, but I didn't have a lot of people knowing who I was. So it was easy to book trips during salmon seasons. Like, I cut my teeth in the Hanford Reach my first year guiding, and it was a phenomenal year. It was like the year before we had the really huge run, but we had a great run. Mm-hmm. And so it was easy to find customers then. So I kind of had a leg up at that point, and I started building my business that way. Well, then I fished so many different species of fish throughout my life that it was easy transition into walleye, into sturgeon, into steelhead, into salmon, sockeye. You know, I even did some bass trips this year. I actually did,
holy smokes, some
smallmouth bass. So it's all about what you can get people to want to book.
Yeah, right.
And so I have a lot of customers that travel around with me that'll do the different things, and so I have kind of diversified my fishing. And I can tell you this, it's important to not be a one-trick pony in this industry, mm-hmm. because if you are and they take away your fishing, like we used to have steelhead in the Upper Columbia. Mm-hmm. I know several guides that was a big thing for them. That was a lot of their business.
Oh yeah.
Well, they took it away one year and they were really hoping it was going to come back the next year, and it never did. Mm-hmm. And it still hasn't came back. Yep. And so those guys have learned to diversify their fishing, and that's what I've always done. I've always been the guide who did walleye, who did sturgeon, who did salmon.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Wagner for years, his tributary fisheries on the Upper Columbia for steelhead was synonymous. I mean, bobber down.
Yeah,
Brad. Floats and jigs.
Yeah.
Fishing all those trips for steelhead. He ran steelhead trips like crazy. Snow, piled into his drift boat. He's out there running steelhead trips, and it was for years I would follow him and interview him and you know, go fish with him, and just that was his moneymaker.
Right.
Guess what? He doesn't do that anymore.
Exactly, and that's kind of who I was kind of referring to a little bit, because he put a lot into that fishery, and that dude loved that fishery.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was his passion, and it's hard to see that taken away from a guy. But now I see Brad out there walleye fishing. You know, he's out there. We're waving, we're talking.
Kokanee, Lake Chelan, Chinook.
He's just as excited about
always.
You know what I mean? He's happy to be fishing and working.
And you know, if we continue to work in the right direction and try to get things back, I mean, maybe one of these days some of those fisheries will come back, and then you have all these additional fisheries that you've been doing for years that you also can, you know, hold a stake in, and just you're just like you just said, very diverse in your year. You know, you just bounce around, and the nice thing is, as you kind of mentioned, you're finding that you're able to take clients and introduce them to a new fishery. They've had a great day or success with you, or they just enjoyed the time you've put with them on the water, a couple trips out, and then they're like, hey, what else do you do? Well, I do walleye fishing, I do kokanee. I'd like to go check out that triploid fishing. You know, and you're getting those repeat customers, albeit in different fisheries, which is great for you.
Well, that's a big part of the guide, being a guide, is being in the boat and conveying how fun and exciting these other fisheries are for my customers, and letting that other customer know that those fisheries are available to go do. That's a big part of the business, is selling the next trip. And you know, and I've diversified my walleye fishing. Even it's not just walleye fishing. Like, I have jig fishing for walleye. I have, you know, we'll do some bottom walker fishing. We'll do crankbait fishing, and it all depends on the time of year and what body of water I'm on. I got a new fishery that I really like doing, and it's been exciting for me because we're casting jigs and side drifting for walleye like guys steelhead fish. And it's been exceptional. We were catching some really big fish, and it's a wintertime fishery, so we're catching, you know, 10-pound, 12-pound walleye that are getting ready to spawn. So, but I'm trying to teach people the conservation end of this walleye thing, because they're great fish, they're great eating. A big female is not great eating, and a small fish is not going to have a lot of meat on it. So, you know, the department wants them gone, but I still feel like, why would we cut our throats and get rid of walleye when our salmon runs and our steelhead runs are declining so much? What are we going to fish for when those fish are gone? So these are important things that I'm trying to teach my customers as well. And my customers have been really good. Like, we'll let go almost all females that are over 23 inches, unless a guy wants to mount one or something like that. But skin mounts aren't as good as the replica mounts anymore anyway. So we'll take measurements, pictures, great pictures, and we'll let them go. And that's another part of my business that's huge. Pictures. People love those memories. And that I've grown a business like that. And so I try to teach people. I do a lot of I do a lot of public speaking, spend a lot of time at shows in the wintertime, and so
seminars,
so it never stops for me. And so being a guide is not all it's cracked up to be, but you gotta love it. And if you love it and you're doing what you love, then you're not really working anyway. So
you're tired because you've been working.
I'll ask you that come about September 15th.
Exactly.
It gets to be a grind. It really does. You know, like Cody says, Groundhog's Day at Buoy 10. Same deal. Up and getting bait ready and fishing, and same thing over and over and over and over.
And you know, for those folks that are stepping in your boat for the very first time, you want to make sure that they're having that great experience as well. So you can't have a day where, hey guys, I'm sorry, man, I'm just tired. I'm not myself today. That doesn't work. I'm paying you XYZ amount of dollars. I expect a good day on the water. If we don't catch fish, we don't catch fish, but at least let me enjoy myself, right? So, real good. All right, before we get out of here, logbooks, yes or no? We're not going to go real deep on this, but just kind of, is it going to be a good thing, or do you have some concerns?
I did logbooks in Alaska.
Yeah.
It was a way for them to keep track of fish and what we were doing and the amount of fish taken out of it. The logbooks that they're proposing are not going to be paper copies like we had in Alaska. It's going to be an app on your phone. So they'll have real-time data on the amount of fish we're catching, what we're impacting, which on the conservation side, I think it's great. As far as them having some control over limited access, there's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of plans in works right now that they're trying to work it out. Our guide association is working with WDFW on some of these things and trying to help them to mold how the system is going to be implemented, and we've had some success with that. I'm just tentative to have them in my everyday business and being able to, if I accidentally make a mistake, to be able to write me a ticket for that. And not and we're really adamant about this, not every day that I'm on the water is a day that I'm guiding. I might be taking Dwayne England fishing. I might be taking my granddaughter fishing, or my grandpa or my uncle or my friends. We're pre-fishing, getting ready for a fishery.
But you're required to complete a log if you're on the water.
And that's some of the stuff that we're working on, is trying to figure that out. And I think that's probably what we're going to end up having to do. But I've been very busy with the fisheries that I'm doing, so I'm not 100% up on where everything's at, but that's coming down the pike really soon.
Well, Bobby Kretzer messaged me here a couple weeks ago and said, hey, more than happy to come on and talk about that process, where it's at and how it's shaping up throughout the guide associations and who's involved and what's going on. We had Kelly Cunningham on a couple weeks ago and talked about the implementation of this program. It's kind of funny. The laypersons that tune in and watch each week, they've been kind of chiming in from time to time. Hey, let's find out what the guides really think about this whole process. I mean, people are just kind of curious as to where you guys are at. Do you think it's a good plan? Do you think it helps in the future of managing our fisheries? Do we think it's a double-edged sword? Time will tell. I think that it sounds to me like they still need to fine-tune a few of the finer points of this thing before they implement it. But again, we'll get Bobby on. We'll have that discussion with him as well, and we'll get her straightened out. So I know you need to get on the road. We could talk for hours, but I'm not going to do that to you. So that and everybody else will just turn us off and go to bed. So we'll call it quits right now. But hey, thanks for making the drive. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're working your ass off down there at Buoy 10, and it gets to be a grind. But got you here on the west side and got you in studio. I couldn't be happier. It was great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Been wanting to come up and visit you guys and see the studio and do this for a long time, so I'm really happy to be here.
Any openings before we go?
I got Vernita coming up. I got some coho trips, bottom fishing, crabbing trips going on at Buoy 10 up until the 15th of September, and then I'm going to start chasing the kings up the river.
Okay.
So I definitely have trips open.
Austin's Northwest Adventures LLC website or Facebook? .com website or Facebook, track you down, get a hold of your phone numbers are all posted there, correct?
Yep. If they get on my website, they can get all my information. So.
All right, that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week on the 29th. Actually, I'll be back. Barnum, you're
off a week.
You're taking a week off. No, I'm either going solo or I need a co-host. Chime in if you want to join me.
Albridge can bring you some cookies.
Albridge can bring some cookies if he doesn't eat them all on the way over here. I'm looking for a co-host next week. Chime in, let me know if you're interested. We'll make a pick during the midweek and see who we end up with. Maybe somebody you already know, or it could be a complete stranger. We'll find out. Could be Shing. I guess we'll find out. All right, have a great week. We'll see you here next Thursday, 7 p.m.